Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and after an illustrious career of 53 race victories, a third most ever in F1 history, 4 world titles, still the youngest ever Formula 1 world champion, Sebastian Vettel has confirmed he will be retiring at the end of this season. We'll see the reasons why. Was now the right time to step away? But also the big question really, who might well replace Vettel at Aston Martin next season? We'll try and do our best to answer that over the coming minutes. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. But yes, earlier today, it's kind of weird really because Vettel finally joined Instagram, the social media. Obviously he doesn't really do much social media stuff. He joins that, and his first thing that he posts is his retirement announcement. A few things were said here. He did make a kind of a pretty emotional video really on, I think it's on the Aston Martin channel or something on YouTube, where he says like, look, he just wants to spend more time with his family, with his kids, and despite not feeling like he's really lost it at all and still feels like he can compete at a high level. Obviously he hasn't really had, for many reasons, he hasn't had the car to do it the last few years after the Ferrari period. Aston Martin has kind of maybe taken it out of him a little bit. He said recently that, he wants to be up there competing for not just points, but for podiums and for race wins, and he probably doesn't see that future in Aston Martin. And, there's been a question the last few months, really. I think we talked about this probably a good couple of months ago here on the channel, that there were rumours going around that Vettel was planning to retire. Now, we kind of wondered, would Aston Martin be able to keep him? Would Vettel give it one more season? And it seemed like recent indications were leaning that way. Here are some statements here from the people involved at Aston Martin. I'm not just going to pause and read the whole thing out. If you guys would like to read the statements, feel free to. I did want to mention here, as Vettel says, the decision to retire has been a difficult one for me to take, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about it. At the end of the year, I want to take more time to reflect on what I will focus on next. It is very clear to me that being a father, I want to spend more time with my family, but today is not about saying goodbye. Rather, it is about saying thank you to everyone, not least to the fans, without whose passionate support F1 would not exist. And Lawrence Stroll says, want to thank Sebastian from the bottom of my heart for the great work he has done for the team. Let's just say we wanted him to continue, right? We made it clear to him that we wanted him to continue with us next year, but in the end he has done what feels right for himself and his family, and of course we respect that. If only Aston Martin were actually a decent F1 team, then maybe we would still have Vettel competing in F1 going forwards. But I think he's probably looking at his future and thinking, well, probably now's the right time to step away. It's unfortunate. I think we're going to miss Vettel sorely. Of course, a great champion, but I think many people pretty much saw this one coming for a few months at this point, to be honest. And even Lawrence Barretto says that Vettel only made his final decision last night. His final decision about retiring, told the team last night. He was first thinking about this apparently back in 2018, right, during the difficult Ferrari days, and has been back and forth on that pretty much since then, right? So plenty of reaction from the other drivers. George Russell says the following. Lewis Hamilton even says this. I thought it was a really nice statement really from Hamilton, just because the rivalry they had back in the day and then becoming great friends in recent years. Seb, it's been an honour to call you a competitor, and an even greater honour to call you my friends. Leaving this sport better than the way you found it is always the goal. I have no doubt that whatever comes next for you will be exciting, meaningful and rewarding. So he also went on to say that Sebastian Vettel, one of the very few drivers in Formula 1 history to ever be more than just a Formula 1 driver, which I thought was a nice statement as well. And certainly when you look at a picture like this, the old guard, you obviously got Webber here, but Button here, and now Vettel no longer going to be competing next year. Alonso and Hamilton still will be, to our understanding, for probably a bit further, right? These guys don't want to go away and still have relatively competitive cars at the moment, right? And Vettel has not enjoyed that luxury for the last couple of seasons. Now, of course, one of the big questions that therefore remains, which driver is going to take Vettel's place? We know that Lance Stroll is still going to be there, Daddy Stroll bankrolls the team, all this type of stuff. Who is going to be their driver partner next season? Will it be a big name driver that has potential to actually have some impact, or is it just going to be someone to try and fill the shoes of Vettel and not do a particularly good job? Because certainly Aston Martin as a team has been probably maybe one of the biggest disappointments of this season. I think last season at times they at least looked somewhat competitive. This year they've pretty much fallen flat since the start of the season, at least in quali pace. Sometimes in the races they can pick up some points, but it's rarely looking good for them. Many drivers, of course, at the press conferences have been asked, okay, would they be interested in joining Aston Martin for Vettel's seat? And basically they were like, yeah, well, politely, that's not the case. Bottas even says kind of maybe a little bit of a dig at Mercedes, I never believed I'd say it, but I actually have a contract this time, right? So well, he can't leave, I suppose, if he wanted to. Now there have of course been some drivers in the discussion. We see 3 of them right here. Now actually Alonso was talked about a while ago, but the present rumour is that Alonso will probably stay with Alpine, as you might well expect, and they're going to probably put Piastri into a different seat, and Alonso and Ocon will still be the driver pairing at Alpine. But there was some talk that if they were to get rid of Alonso for some reason at Alpine to try and get Piastri in the seats, then he might go to Aston Martin even. That was talked about a couple of months ago. I doubt that's the case anymore though. So two of the drivers that of course in the graphic here, one of which being Daniel Ricciardo. Now Ricciardo's saying and McLaren are saying that he will be staying in the McLaren seat for next season. But then again, it was only a few days ago where Mike Crack was saying from Aston Martin that yes, they'd talked to Vettel and he was wanting to stay and they want to keep him and that's how it's going to go. And then a few days later, Vettel's retiring, right? So you never really can trust these teams about what they actually say as to what they actually do. Give it a couple of months. But I'm sure Aston Martin are going to be very quickly looking for a replacement, especially if Vettel only told them last night that he was planning to retire. Ricciardo has said though, my future is clear and it is here, with McLaren implying. So yeah, seems like Ricciardo believes he's going to stay in that seat, but still, if they wanted to get a guy like Piastri in, Oscar Piastri, the reigning Formula 2 champion, then potentially they could get Piastri into the McLaren, then Ricciardo could potentially have a seat at Aston Martin. That is one of the rumours going on. Of course, one of the other rumours could be Mick Schumacher, because there was some talk a little bit ago that Haas might want to move Mick Schumacher on, but Ferrari, of course, with a fair insight into what's going on at Haas, they wanted to keep Mick Schumacher because, of course, family ties make sense to keep Mick, especially based on his recent performance. But Haas kind of wanted to get rid of him, apparently, before he started to have a good couple of races recently, and now they've probably changed their mind a bit and want to stick by Mick going forwards. But if they do decide to get rid of him for whatever reason, then Aston Martin could be a seat. Of course, he knows Vettel very well and has almost kind of been a father figure to Mick at times over these last couple of seasons, which has, of course, been nice to see their friendship really blossom. But these are some other names in the conversation, right? So Mick Schumacher has been linked, although I deem that rather unlikely, to be honest. Daniel Ricciardo could be an option, but then again, it's only really if McLaren want to get rid of him. Piastri is kind of the big name in this driver change period, because Piastri is going to get a seat somewhere, but where it is still remains up in the air. Maybe it's still going to be Williams, which would be unfortunate for him, but that might be the relationship that Alpine decide to have with Williams on the loan agreement, whatever they come up with. These are two other names to mention. Hülkenberg, of course, currently the reserve driver. He filled in for Sebastian Vettel in the first race and the second race, I believe, of the season this year, because Seb tested positive. Now, Felipe Drugovich, another driver of note, because I believe he's now in his third season in Formula 2, but I think he is still leading the championship currently, Drugovich. So definitely a driver of note. Maybe his stock isn't going to be quite as high as a guy like Piastri, but still, Drugovich has had a fair bit of talk around him recently, currently leading, as I'm pretty sure, the F2 championship. So that is another driver to at least keep your eyes on. So there's maybe 4 or 5 drivers right now that are being considered. But then again, I remember earlier this year when Mazepin had to go from Haas, and there were some drivers that are in the conversation, and then Magnussen kind of came out of nowhere and got the seat, right? That seemed to be Haas's initial intention, and the rumours didn't really get it right until last minute. People have talked about Oscar Piastri, but it seems like he's an unlikely option because he's probably going to go to Williams, or maybe wanting the move to McLaren, right? So the McLaren seat is where Piastri and Mark Webber, his manager, want Piastri to go, but that seems unlikely if they're going to stick by Ricciardo for another year, which probably means that Aston Martin will have to get a different driver, maybe one of the 3 on screen, and even then Mick Schumacher seems unlikely. So they might have to go for someone currently outside of Formula 1, but I'm sure they want a big name driver ideally. But maybe Lance Stroll is thinking, well, yeah, maybe I can be the official number 1 driver now, depending on who they get to round out the team, right? So yes, these are some of the names that have been mentioned: Oscar Piastri, Felipe Drugovich, Nico Hülkenberg, even Mick Schumacher, potential candidates. But as of now, no clarity at all on who it might potentially be. There's just been some names flying around, but we don't really know what Aston Martin are thinking and planning to do as time progresses. This was rather interesting from Will Buxton, another name just worthy of note here, because Nick de Vries, of course, was in FP1 at this past weekend of the French Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton, and it has kind of been a Mercedes driver for quite some time in the Formula E side at the moment, but Mercedes are pulling out of Formula E, and last weekend the question was raised to Toto Wolff, what are you going to do in Nick de Vries? Because he's kind of in the Mercedes program, and Toto said, well, look, if we can't get him a seat somewhere, then we're probably just going to have to let him go, right, and let him do something else, because he's 27 now, Nick de Vries, he hasn't got that many more opportunities really left to get a seat in Formula 1. This might be a chance here for him, because people were saying de Vries could definitely be an F1 caliber driver. I kind of like this option compared to some of the other ones that we have looked at, and also ties to Mercedes will probably help really with Aston Martin being a Mercedes powered car. So there's some options there as well, but Nick de Vries might be another one to throw into the conversation, just because we've heard all the talk about Nick de Vries recently at the French Grand Prix. Toto was saying we're going to try and get him a seat. All of a sudden this opportunity arises, and they might think, okay, perfect, perfect to try and get Nick in here, especially given there's no other clear option that Aston Martin might want to go with. I do hope, though, that we can get Vettel in some sort of other role. It would be a shame for him to kind of vanish off the face of the earth from the Formula 1 side. If we got him on the occasional TV pundit, occasionally on the broadcast, that would be great to see as well. I'm sure he's still going to be involved to some degree, but I think, it does kind of make sense for Vettel to move on at this point. However sad it is for Formula 1, the day was coming sooner rather than later. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.